I'm back. We are back. Peace and welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. If I could sing, y'all, it would be on. Let me bring Cece back in here. Here she comes. All right. Welcome to Black Breastfeeding Week 2020. We are so excited to be speaking with the trauma queen Elle in just a few moments. And we'll be talking about, we'll just be having a conversation about breastfeeding through sexual trauma. We know how, as Black folks, we have experienced and continue to experience so much trauma as we live our lives. And our body holds on to so much, and we don't realize what's happening all the time until our awareness shifts. And then we realize what has been happening, although common, is not normal. And so we're going to talk with Elle again. Not again, we're going to talk with Elle in a little bit. And she's just going to share some of her experience with us. She's going to tell us a little bit about who she is, what she does, how trauma impacts the body. Cece, if you can hear me, try and join again. Send a request to join again, and then I think I'll try and let you in again. Oh, wait, I think I can request you. Excuse me, everyone. This is like my second time doing this with someone, so I am processing out loud because that's just part of my process.
I'm
Oh,
back.
yay, you're back. Welcome. So
Hi,
I think
everybody.
we can only, when Elle gets here, then I'll just shift over.
Sorry, y'all. We just trying to master this whole Instagram live thing. But Newark is taking over today for the Chocolate Milk Cafe. Newark CMC East is
Yes.
on your live.
And while we're here,
Welcome, everybody.
yes, welcome.
Well,
Just while we're here and we're just getting started, in the chat, just type, let us know where you're joining us from. Like, where are you in the world? And if you have any questions about breastfeeding and trauma, feel free to put those in there too. I have some little notes over here, so I'll add them to the notes and we'll be able to get to them. We know it's the evening. We know people are just getting off work, even if it's at home, have to deal with the youth and all of that. So we're not going to keep you too long. But we're going to have a conversation about trauma. And I know the last question we asked last time was, has trauma had an impact on your breastfeeding journey? And I am grateful to say that I have not. But I have worked with people who have experienced trauma, and we've had to do some body work and some writing and some activities to kind of help them work through some internal processes that I'm really excited to talk to Elle about.
I kind of found that talking, even though that wasn't my strong point initially, talking about it gave me much power. Much power. I didn't realize that I used to hate talking in front of people. I used to hate public speaking. When I went to a summer program in college, that was a class I had to take before I could go to the next step. And you had to pass it, or they weren't gonna, you wouldn't get the money or whatever it was. I was in EOF, and so they wouldn't let, and I really hated it. And someone really walked me through that, and I found that my experience to talk about it has gave me great power.
Power in the voice. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right, so let me see. I'm gonna invite. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I think
Try and see.
Let's see if you hop off and then let me invite Lauren. Invite.
Okay.
Okay. I think I'm still here. Y'all can still see me, hear me, right? And let me Bring in L. I don't know why I'm singing so much today. Maybe I'm happy because it's Black Breastfeeding Week. I don't know how to do this. Sorry, y'all. Okay, I think it's coming.
You did it!
Yes! Welcome.
Hola. You did it. You were like, I don't know if I can. And
Just
then
start pushing buttons. Like, this is going to work. So welcome to the Newark takeover for Black Breastfeeding Week with the Chocolate Milk Cafe.
Okay.
And this is our first time doing this as a nonprofit organization, so that's pretty exciting. And we'll just have a little bit of a conversation here. Thank you for agreeing to share your story with us and your experiences. So we're here for you. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. Who is Elle?
So I am Elle, like you so beautifully said. My full name is Loren, but I go by Elle now because, listen, people mess up my name all the time, and I'm just like, let me just make it so it doesn't get messed up. So I'm Elle. I'm your somatic intuition coach. That's a long term. That just means that I help to work within the body to discover the traumatic blocks and help to move that energy out so that we can rediscover the healing power within our bodies and within trusting our intuition for guidance. I'm also a licensed massage therapist, but I now call myself a body worker because what I do is just too complex. Also with body work and combining a bit of somatic work with massage therapy to help working to move the traumatic energy from the body with actual hands-on work. So that's pretty much what I do. That's a little bit of who I
am. Yeah, that's exciting. And how do you protect yourself from taking in what you're helping others work out?
Yeah, so it's definitely easy. I mean, when I used to work at spas and I used to be massaging, maybe 15, 16 people a week, it was a lot of energy I was taking in. And it was very hard to kind of take a second to clear out. Obviously, you can't whip out some sage. You can't sit there and do some breath work because you're doing clients back to back to back. And in that time, I was tired. My body was very beat up. I just didn't have the time to rest and recuperate. Now, I'm my own boss, so I make sure to schedule clients with enough time so that I can clear out, so that I can do a breath work. And something that my teacher, her name is Kati, what she taught me was to do a meditation of pieces of me. And pretty much what that is you're pulling in the pieces of you that get stuck in conversations, right? Stuck in our is stuck in maybe another person's, traumatic residue that they left on the table. So as I'm sitting there after, I make sure to recall all the pieces of me that might be left within this client and their experience and call them back home to come back in my awareness, And then I also obviously sage after each client. I make sure to wipe myself down of any energy and kind of just make sure I'm realigned for the next person. Yeah.
Okay. I hear that. So I'm sure people will want to know more, right? Because sometimes when you hear things about the body and wiping off other people's energy, or even how we internalize that, it also taps into how we begin to mother and parent, right? And I say mother, the whole concept of mothering has kind of shifted for me, just in terms of how we mother ourselves, how we've been mothered, and how it impacts our parenting journey. So I guess that leads us to one of our first questions, or our first question. Tell us a little bit about the challenges and successes you've had along your breastfeeding journey. And I love that you said you help people tap into the healing powers within.
Yeah.
That is so powerful, especially when it comes to the whole womb wisdom and being able to get to the process to be able to offer food to your child.
Indeed.
So tell us, how was your journey?
So with me, it was very interesting, I thought that it would be, more difficult with the technicalities, right? Getting the baby to latch on, right? Finding the best position to hold them in so that they can latch on easier. You know, making sure they're eating enough, making sure I'm producing enough milk. All of those things were the things I thought I would struggle with. But instead, you know, Marty's greedy butt. He latched on pretty well. He nursed when he needed to nurse. And I didn't have too many difficulties positioning him and getting him, you know, position. But what I started to feel was like every time he would latch on, I would feel this like weird energy within myself. You know, it was fairly uncomfortable. His latch wasn't, you know, too close to the nipple to where it was hurting me, but it was this internal feeling of just like disgust, anxiety, um, feeling very just energetically like charged and uncomfortable. And I couldn't really understand why. But what I noticed also is it started to bring up a lot of wounding from my inner child, right, from my childhood in times where I was molested, you know. So I was sexually molested, still not sure of the age, you know, because it's hard to recall sometimes. But when I was probably in between the ages of 3 and 5. And so at that time, you know, you don't think that even that's going to impact you. So you grow up, you do your thing. Of course, it's come up during sexual intercourse and things of that nature, but it was present for some reason when I was. So it was
So
just
can I pause you there for a moment? So you're
absolutely.
in tune with your body now.
Yes.
Were you in a space before you gave birth? Were you as in tune with your body as you
I
are
was.
now?
I mean, when I gave birth, I was still very in tune with my body. I just being a body worker, I'm kind of like, you know, attentive to what's going on, but I wasn't so far within my own trauma work and my own like self-care practice, you know. You know what I mean? It was a fun journey, birthing. It was hard and rigorous, but I was with it. I was there with, you know, the flow of contraction and things of that nature. But I think once I gave birth, it just created this, you know, interesting thing. It was bringing up the residues, right? The lingering, still living within my system from what happened to me. And it was
Okay.
very, yeah.
Yeah, and I ask that because I find that sometimes we don't always pay attention to what our body is speaking. You know, we
Right.
don't always know how to listen to our bodies. Can you speak to that a little bit? If I am someone who is not necessarily in tune to with energy, let's say energy, I don't know what these people are talking about.
Definitely.
What would you tell someone who's just like, it just ain't right. It's not for me.
Right. So I mean, though we don't know, right, mentally or conceptually that we're in tune with energy, we are energy, you know? So energy is anything that kind of shows up in your body as a sensation. Sometimes it's the urge to move. Sometimes it's the contraction of our muscles, right? Our shoulders being held up to here without our control. You know, sometimes the way we speak, the way we walk, the way we talk, every single fragment of this reality is energy. So when it comes down to someone who's saying like, I don't know, this isn't for me, it doesn't feel comfortable, which is okay. You know, everyone goes through their own things. Also, everyone has their own, you know, learning that they've learned through their parents, their grandparents about breastfeeding in that journey. But when it comes down to it, if you're not giving yourself that moment to at least just try, and if you did try and you just like push away, a lot of times that's that feeling of I don't want to feel, right? And basically feeling in and tuning into what we feel inside of our bodies is us connecting with the language of the body. The body communicates through sensation, right? It communicates things that we feel. And so if we're not feeling in, we can't hear what the body is trying to say. We can't connect to what's going on within our system as the body communicates through what we feel. You're not bringing your awareness in the present moment to that, you're not able to nourish now your brain, right? The control center, the brain and the spinal cord to make proper decisions for the way that you're reacting in now time. So feeling is actually essential. But when we are afraid to feel, when we're not taught how to feel or how to support ourselves in feeling, because it's not always easy to feel, right?
Support ourselves in feeling.
Yes. Supporting our feeling, you know? And when we push away, we're creating dissociation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not fully living or not fully inhabiting our being. We are just kind of conceptualizing our existence. We're clinging to an identity. We're clinging to the pieces of us that we don't have to inhabit physically, right? Just the pieces of us that we know within our minds. And that's not. So in this journey of breastfeeding, when people say things like that, it's really just about supporting them and just trying, and then possibly finding someone who's grounded, right? Who isn't like, I also don't feel, I also don't welcome, breastfeeding into either. Maybe if you're curious and you wanted to try it out, finding someone who did go through the journey, who knows what it feels like, who did kind of endure the process, that you can actually lean on to support you, right, in the process of connecting, how it may feel and how it may show up within your system.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that, because at the Chocolate Milk Cafe, we have a lot of people here ready to support. And I have to say,
Right.
even some women, my co-facilitator, she's never breastfed. She's never breastfed, and we just hopped on a little bit before this. And one of the things that she was explaining, one of the things TT was explaining, was that part of the shame and the trauma that she had, the shame that was put on her, not
Right.
necessarily that she was shameful of being pregnant. She was 18 years old, and the shame that was kind of put on her kind of led to traumatic experiences and feelings in her body that didn't
Yes.
even lead her to doing any type of research or thinking
Yeah.
about breastfeeding. So that experience alone led her to want to help other people. So it's helpful for us to be able to tap into listening, I guess, listening to what the body's telling you, because she didn't have to be in here.
Right.
And being able to listen, I do feel like sometimes as Black folks, we don't know how to listen to what our body is saying.
All people, but yes, definitely as Black people, just kind of, we inhabiting this experience as Black people, we've been taught to dissociate from our bodies, right? Our bodies have been commodified. Our bodies were seen as tools. We weren't seen as people, right? Whole people, even legally, up into a certain point in the society.
Right.
So we're still a lot of that generational trauma that distances us from the body, that teaches us to see our bodies as a tool, right? As that just moves us from point A to point B, and not something that's actually a piece of all that we are, right? It creates a lot of dissociation, a lot of trauma, and that will show up within our habits, right? Our cultural habits. That'll show up within our standards and the things that we pass down on our children's within our system, so it's definitely dangerous to kind of be in that space, but there's
And
healing.
yes,
There's
there is healing. And thank you for pointing out that it's not just Black folks that are having this experience. It is everyone. And we're so used to disassociating from our bodies, that we're not, again, tapping into that healing power that's within, because it's so far, in many cases, it's so far. It takes a while to get there, but we can get back there. So to just shift a little bit, I think I interrupted where you were going with your journey. And you were saying that when Madi latched on, you felt something.
Yes.
You keep going.
No, it was interesting. Actually, thank you for interrupting, because all of that was necessary to be said. But feeling, this desire, and again, just like the sister that you mentioned, I too felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of guilt, because I thought that, in the perfect world, you nurse and this beautiful experience, right? Every picture you see is like mommy and child, and the mom's looking down at the baby smiling, and the baby's looking up at mom, rubbing her hand, and just like, oh. And for some people, that is the experience. For me, that became the experience after time of being able to heal through some of these things. But I noticed that there was a lot of things coming up, even for me. And I still, maybe you have more knowledge on this, Jillian, but I would nurse and I would actually lose my appetite and become moody. And I was like Googling things. And I mean, it boiled down to maybe something hormonal, but there was no like clear answer for it. But the way my body was responding was literally like I would feel like I would literally have a plate of food in front of me. And then as soon as he started crying, I would go get him to nurse. My appetite would, and then I would be like very, very attitudey. So I never really got any answers to that, but it was part of my experience. And so I kind of had to, right, be with that journey. I had to make sure that the environment around me was supportive of that, right? Explaining to docs, like, if I'm snapping at you while I'm breastfeeding, just know it's not me, right? Just know that something going on within my hormones and I literally can't control it. Can you understand? And of course he did. So providing that space and having that supportive relationship really helped.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad you missed it. I'm hearing a couple of things. One, I don't know about that. I've never heard of that, but that's something I'd love to bring into our monthly meetings, because maybe other people are having this experience or have
Right.
had it and been able to work through it. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But then I'm hearing, I guess there were three things. So the first thing was that. So I'm gonna bring that to our group and see what we figure out. And then the
Right.
second thing, and if y'all know in the chat, feel free to write something. If you've had this experience and figured out what was going on, feel free to write that in. But second, creating that environment that is supportive. And I think sometimes we look to other people to make an environment supportive, and sometimes it could just be what's in our space. A smell, something that we're looking at that we're not realizing is triggering some kind of tension in our body that's not allowing our milk to flow. So being able to create space and get rid of some things, we might need to get rid of some of what's around us in order to create space for what is trying to come through us, right?
Yeah.
And then your partner speaking what you were feeling, that is
Right.
super powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you, for even being able to say, this is what I'm doing. And how did he respond to that?
Yeah, he definitely, he understood. Of course, he might be triggered because we don't oftentimes talk about the daddy's experience. It's not always easy for them either to kind of be with this moody woman after working super hard because now she's, on leave, can't work. And then like there's a crying baby and he cries every time I pick him up, right? So daddies go through a lot in the newborn phase, in this early breastfeeding, mommyhood journey as well. And so have somebody that was very, just supportive of the way I was experiencing this, who stepped in to clean up the house, who stepped in to do the things I couldn't do. It created a lot of space for me to be able to kind of just sit back and figure out what's going on, right? Figure out what's going on with inside of Madi and like how I relate grow and be able to become nurturing, and he's just witnessed, like he noticed when it would happen. He listened to what I would express, and that was, all he could do at that time, right? Listen, figure out the things I supported and do that, and it was great. But I do know that that's not everybody's experience, you know what I mean? Oftentimes, firstly, it's hard to even express, it's hard to even sort through your own emotions, it's hard to sort through your own like experience with the whole thing in itself. So to be able to sort through that and get clear and then verbalize to somebody, depending on who they are and how they will receive you, that's not always the easiest thing. So I was definitely grateful to have that kind of support because I can't imagine not having it, but I know that that's the reality for a lot of women.
Right. Yep. All right. So I'm looking at the time. I see there's a question I guess there's a question box somewhere, but somebody put a question in here that says, how were you able to rid yourself of the trauma? So that's the question. Let me kind of add on to that. Do you believe you rid yourself of trauma? And then that question as well.
So it's very interesting, because there's a lot of different perspectives and definitions of trauma. But from my training and from what I understand as a body-centered person, as my education is within somatics, and that deals with how the body responds to trauma within, yes, you can heal trauma from your system. Does trauma change your biology? Yes, it does. Trauma can change the way your brain is shaped through the neuroplasticity, right? It can change the way your body responds to moments, the way that you respond to the survival mechanisms within your system in times of a traumatic experience, right? All things play into it and do actually change you as a person. But the other side of it, right, for every vortex of trauma, there's a vortex of healing. So
Mm-hmm.
shape the body and change it with a traumatic experience, you can also shape the body and change it through certain healing practices that help you to grow and change and relearn and actually release. But to speak more to that, just to define trauma from what I know, trauma is anything too much, too fast, too soon. So anything that happens like, whoa, that was way too much for me to handle in this time. I was not prepared, right? Too fast. Again, it happened in a split second. Your nervous system wasn't able to regulate. It wasn't able to digest. It wasn't able to understand what just happened to you. And too soon. Maybe it happened too early on in your life, right? Maybe you were just a little kid and it grew beyond your capacity to understand that thing. So
Mm-hmm.
what when these things happen too much, too fast, too soon, they trigger these responses within your system, aka our survival responses. When your body's in danger, when your body is witnessing something that feels unsafe, it's going to call forth the things that are there to protect it. So those are the survival responses that make you either flight, right? So run away, fight back, or they call the other two freeze, which is like when you see like a squirrel and the squirrel's just like, and it's like
Okay.
stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then appease, which is like when you're like tilting your head to the side and you're like, can you please accept me? Sometimes that comes up as overcompensation, over explaining yourself, things of that nature. The point is
Okay.
that with all things, there's an energetic charge. The body takes energy. It needs energy to actually fulfill this thing, right? If you're getting ready to fight or you're getting ready to run away, you're going to sweat, get
Mm-hmm.
hot,
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline rushing, and your body's going to prepare to get out of a dangerous situation.
Okay.
Now, if you're in an experience and you can't fight back and you can't run away, right, and you can't actually express the very energy that's coming up for you to be able to release and get to safety, that energy is going to live within you. It's
Mm.
going to tissues, stuck in your cells, stuck in your body, stuck in the way that you think about yourself and the contractions of the way you hold your posture, all these different things. And
Mm-hmm.
so the traumatic work of somatics and different body-centered techniques is all about including yoga, right? Including things
Mm-hmm.
of this are all about opening the channels, releasing that energy that gets stuck in our tissues,
Mm-hmm.
relearn ways and the patterns in which our body fulfills certain reactions to stress and to pressure. And then giving ourselves permission to do the work to kind of work backwards,
Mm.
undo it, right? If
Mm.
you always like in an argument, you notice that, okay, my intention is to come in and be level-headed, to talk and like a regular human being and to just be understanding. But as soon as they say something you like, I don't know what you, right?
Right.
Then you might throw a cup across the
Get the
room, right?
bobblehead going.
All that stuff is conditioned tendencies. That's the
Mm.
body holding on to the program of trauma and the way that we've behaved under a level of stress that happened in the past that
Mm-hmm.
shows up autopilot. You know what I mean? To be
Yep.
able to do the thing it knows to do. But to
Mm-hmm.
change happens, right? And this is the answer to the question, to heal that thing, right? To rid the body of the trauma, it takes right time to notice, to be with, to feel exactly how that energy rises up into your system. And then it takes the time to change. You have to
Mm-hmm.
resist, go against the grain of what your body knows to do. That is not an easy thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
And when you implement practices that start to shape you towards where you actually want to head, who you actually want to be, what actually suits your well-being. And
Yeah.
that's how I feel. Yeah.
So okay, so I had something just came to my head, and hopefully you'll just work with me through this. I'm thinking let's go through the breastfeeding journey with all of that you just said. So, what would be the fight in the breastfeeding journey? If we're doing fight, flight, freeze, appease, heal, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
the fight with the breastfeeding journey would look like what?
The fight within the breastfeeding journey, and again, this is just general because it can look like anything for
Right.
anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but that would be kind of like resistance, you know, every time your baby cries, because people don't realize, like, only mamas in the journey really know what it feels like to have your hormones everywhere, all this pressure on you to be in like and things. So the fight would be maybe like every time your baby cries and you're just like, ah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't do this. Can't you go get him? Like, can't somebody else do something? Right? That becomes like a fight response, like not wanting to do it. Not resistance is kind of fight. Now flight would be like,
wait, pause for a minute, because I'm also wondering, fight could also look like he's not taking it. Like, I'm like jamming him, not necessarily the separation, but this is going to work, so I'm not even figuring the other stuff out, right? All right, so that's fight. Flight
so
could look like,
flight could look like, and it's crazy because, you know, I got one kid, so I don't even know like for everybody, but
could look like, right?
Dropping them off at grandma's house, right? As something about to happen, be like, all right, gotta go, right? Every time trying to look for ways to kind of find a babysitter and just kind of not do it. Maybe flight, maybe
I think
it may
flight for me may have been running. Like, this
run,
isn't working, I'm going for a run.
right?
I'm out. It's not working.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, that's actually a healthy expression of flight. If you're flighting and you actually get to run, it's actually becomes unhealthy when you refuse to face the very thing, right, that's there that you actually want to get through, and every time you do, get the same thing to run away. So yeah, but I guess freeze may be like, maybe you're laying there, right, and you hear the baby kind of just like, I can't, like, I can't move, I can't do this anymore, I'm tired. Maybe the baby is latched on and kind of disassociated, right? You don't act, and you're kind of just frozen in the moment of like, this is too much, like, you know, this is overwhelming for me. I know he has to eat, but I'm like totally not here, totally not with them. And then appease, it's interesting, you know what I mean? Because it may be more so like, come on, baby, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And that can be healthy, you know, to the point of exhaustion and not knowing, maybe even self-sacrificing your own health, of finding whatever position works for them, but that doesn't work for you and drains you even more, can be appease. Appease is really just anything that's kind of like taking you out of your natural element, yourself, your ability to stick with your morals and the things that you actually need, and kind of just throwing in so that the other person doesn't attack you or doesn't, like, you know, take advantage, or, you know what I'm trying to say, like overstep. Yeah.
It's so, I'm glad you said that, because I find myself often talking, especially with new parents, and I'm using new and not first time, because sometimes it happens with the second, third, sixth, ninth baby, where they completely lose their personhood. You know, they forget that they are person first. And I think that kind of happened to me. It was like everything, I had a very hard time breastfeeding. Like, it just, with the first child, it just was not easy for me. And I just got so hooked on the fact that this had to work for him, that I just completely lost myself. And I was just completely uncomfortable. Like, I needed a chiropractic adjustment, because I would just, you know, consort myself, because I'm like, he's drinking like this, I can't move. It ain't, you know, but being able to listen, right? So I guess now we're getting into the healing part of it, to learn to listen. So healing could look like,
healing can look like, and I guess I can speak specifically to me, right? My healing journey with breastfeeding really had to be accommodation. My particular thing, you know, it's very interesting, but I think I had a lot of appease, and it wasn't for just the baby. My appease was like for this outer appearance. Like, it was like, oh, I'm a breastfeeding mom, I'm natural, we're vegan, I want to fit into this box and make it look like it's effortless, right? But then realize, like, I'm losing myself because of that. I'm losing myself not speaking up. I'm losing myself not telling people what I'm really going through, because, right, everybody in your family is like, you breastfeeding, just put them on some formula, so you don't want to, you know? And then it's just like, I was, like you said, in all kinds of awkward positions trying to nurse. And so I realized, you know what? I got to ditch what they told me at the hospital. I can't hold him in
That's
football and first whatever they told me to do. None of that was working, and I was pressuring myself to do it that way. So let me lay down, right? Laying down and nursing him on my side became what was best, right? Let me figure out new ways. Let me make sure I got my water here, my snacks here, right? Everything's together for me, so I'm not like starving and being malnourished and being dehydrated because I can't move because of baby nursing. You know, like listening to what your needs are and actually having the courage, right? Because we know as new moms and just moms in general, it's hard to put yourself first. It's hard to say, you know what, baby, for 2 seconds, I got to give something to mama, right? So courage to listen within and actually prioritize, actually honor what it is that you need in that time. Suppose, okay, I need this and baby might have to not get this right now.
Right.
Kind of my process of healing. And I think as I started to listen within more and kind of create more suitable environments, it started to become easier, right? I started to open up more to what was actually going on with me and be able to pull in the nourishment that I needed to actually get through it. So as your body just starts to open, your intuition, you and baby had this like, right, this connection, you know, even though it seems like it's this mystical thing, it's physiological connection, and you're connected. I know, like when I deep breathe, even now, say Madi's really like not trying to go to bed and I'm nursing him, I'll deep breathe, literally start getting sleepy, you know, he'll start to breathe with me. And so figuring out, you know what I mean, this relationship is an intuitive thing, and as you start to open up to that resistance to not feel, to not allow yourself to feel, to not allow yourself be with and do what's best for you, and you move through that stage, you're like, oh wow, well this is what my body wants to do and this is what his body wants to do, so let's mesh together and figure it out. And it just started to have more possibility, you know, more options.
Thank you. That in breath, I was going to ask you what were some if there were some tools or techniques that you could share. And what just came up for me as you shared that last bit of the deep breathing, and sometimes I go back and forth with this, everyone has access to breath. If you're alive, you have access to breath, right? I guess sometimes I wonder if people have access to deep breathing, if they indeed have not, one, acknowledged or have become aware of the trauma that their body is holding on to, because sometimes we don't access that. But the air is still there. The air is flowing. I just may not be aware of that. So how do I then have that connection with my child? But are there any tools that you, or tips that you would give to someone, like any activities that people can access who may not have money, who may not be able to come to a freedom experience, to be able to rid the body of, or begin the process to release some of what the body's holding on to?
Yes. I definitely think that, so it depends, right? I would ideally say something like, you know, creating the space to sit with what comes up and actually feel it. But even that can be much, right? Even that can feel like overriding in somebody's system who's never like looked within their body or connected. So I like to give a lot of visceral tools, right? Things that you can do with your hands, with movement and things of that nature. The first thing, and this is for, you know, anybody, but tapping, right? I just put up a video, little reel about tapping, but this is yes, that I exactly that docs showed us. And so it's really just about engaging the body with your hands, and as you tap, it's yes, it does all these things within your body, like moving your lymphatic system, which helps to move the fluids out, move the toxins out of the body, helps to relieve stress and things of that nature. It helps to move and engage the energy points within the meridian lines. But also, like, one of the main things that you can just bring your awareness to is like, wow, as I'm touching my body, it's reaffirming that this is a container, right? This body is a safe space. It's something that's holding me together, right? So bringing the awareness of the nervous system to the body to remember, like, look, even in the midst of all this craziness, we're still intact, right? That can be very empowering, you know, very empowering to connect with the safety of your own body, even if your environment doesn't feel safe or your hormonal state doesn't feel good, you know? Another thing I would say
Wait,
is,
before you go to the second one, would you mind us taking like a minute to tap? Because sometimes I do find that when people hear these things, they're like, oh, she said to tap. And they're like, oh, you know, trying to figure out what that is. Would you mind leading us in maybe like the next 30 minutes to give people an opportunity to just tap? And now they can access that because they've done it. I've done it.
Let's tap. Actually, you know what? In somatics, I really like to give people options. So you don't have to stand up. You can sit down. I think I'll actually sit down just so that'll make it, you know, a little more digestible. And it's so easy, you guys. You just kind of bring in your awareness within your body, kind of just start to shift what I say from your thinking self to your feeling self, right? So taking that moment, even if you have to take a breath and just right, kind of settle your energy, and then you just literally raise one of your hands, could be any hand, and you can start with your chest. So just start tapping around in a circular motion around your chest. And again, if you feel the need to close your eyes, if you want to just close your eyes to help you be more within, you can do that. If you want to leave them open, you can do that too. But just really allow yourself to feel. Don't just conceptualize or think about. Really feel what it feels like for your hands to strike your chest. And then you can stop, and then you can bring your other hand and tap in the opposite direction. So this is just to help the flow of the lymphatic system, right, to move in both directions. And then you can stop that hand and start to tap down the arm. So bringing this hand and then tapping down the opposite arm. So go ahead and just tap down. When you get to the fingertips, you can come up the inside of the arm, tapping in the crease of the elbow all the way to the top of the shoulder, right? And then you can stop. Bringing this arm up now, you can tap underneath the armpit. And this is a major exit point for energy. It's a major exit point for even like the residues that live within our toxins, right, within the lymph of the body. So tapping in, right, this is the armpit. This is where we sweat the most. So that's where the toxins are coming out the body in the lymph. So tapping here helps to move some of that energy, right, but also just feel the connection to the points of energy here. Feel what it feels like to just tap your body and connect to yourself. And you can tap around back to the top of the shoulder as you drop the arm down, and maybe just brush the arm. Swipe all the energy off the arm. And then you can move to the other arm. And again, tapping that top of the shoulder and bringing your hand all the way down the arm. Doing your best again to feel each strike. Move up the inside of the arm when you get there. Back to the top of the shoulder. And then bringing the arm up into the air again. And then tapping underneath the armpit. And again, really bringing your awareness here. Bringing your intention, right? Why are you doing this? What do you want to let go of? What do you want to move out of your body? What's really present for you right now in your emotions? And just imagine watching them flow out of you like a stream coming out of the armpit as you sweat and you release. And then tapping around again to the top of the shoulder. And then you can stop. And then I like to even just bring in like a facial massage to close out, right? Just bringing your hands to your face and then just touching. Really just giving yourself the time to connect to some self-pleasure. Like we hold so much tension in our forehead. We hold so much tension in our jaw. We hold so much tension along the ridge of our eyebrows and around our eyes. So just touching, massaging, right? Allowing it to feel good, allowing yourself to feel good in providing the space for self-care. And even feeling what may be lingering here. What's tense? What's holding? What's present for you as you maybe touch into your jaw? Just noticing if you feel any memories, any thoughts, any images come up, any sensations. And just noticing, being curious, not judging, not trying to fix, just being with the process. Just the last couple seconds, finding those areas that are usually really tight. Even if you want to shift from the face and rub on the neck and the shoulders instead, right? Just taking this time for self to love on you. And then just slowly bringing yourself back here, right? Stilling the hands, bringing them back to your lap or whatever is comfortable. Settling back into your body and slowly starting to open the eyes. And I always like to have people look around, right? So when we look around, you're just looking at your environment. Check out your walls, your ceiling, the table, the floor, even your body, your arms, your legs, your chest. And the reason why is because this is called orienting. As we check out our environment, we're able to remind ourselves, like, yeah, like everything that I just experienced, everything that I just did happened here in this moment, right? Though maybe it doesn't always feel good to be here, maybe it doesn't always feel safe to be here, I can cultivate safety, right? I just safety within the container of my body and also within the container of this room, within this space. So it's good to back into the present, nourishing our nervous systems with like where we are, right? Who, what, when, where, and why, and just settling back here with that intention, that release. So,
Okay. Everybody just take a deep breath in
yes.
and just wash it out. Exhale on out. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting that. You're just
Yeah.
such a playful, curious person. I love that, right? We don't often have the invitation to just, you know what, let's do it. Let's try it together. People don't go unsupported and just like think about it in their minds or maybe too afraid or don't think it'll work. Let's experience it together. Yeah.
Yep. And it also takes you to this space. You go to spaces and you hear all this information. You have all of these ideas that you walk away with, but you never try it. But I believe that our body holds on to everything, whether it's negative or positive. And now you walk away and say, I've tapped. This is how it felt. And I began to listen. Right. So you basically helped us to listen. Like all of that, we had to listen to what was going on in our bodies. And even if you were driving and weren't tapping, you were still able to hear the vibration of the tapping, and we're in this together. So gratitude for that, sis. So we are winding down here. Let me just look at the chat for a moment and see if there were any questions. There is a question button, but I didn't know there was a question button, so I don't know if other people knew about the question button. But let me see if there are any questions. I'm just seeing people saying that this was valuable. Someone saying that they didn't have access to breath. So now, sis, whoever said they didn't have access to breath, perhaps you'll be able to access the tapping, which could then lead you to access your breath, which will then lead you to access some healing. And we're in this together. That's so good. I was definitely able to feel the difference due to the tapping. Yes, peace and thank you for that. If down tapping for center points, but not whole body. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. All right. Do you have how you know I'm driving? I don't know. I just knew. And thank you for guiding us. Thank you for guiding us through that. So yes, thank you for coming on. Thank you for guiding us. If you have any questions, just as Elle is I'm just gonna ask her to give us any last bit tips that she wants to share. If you don't mind sharing one more tool. So we said the breath. Feel free to put any questions in the chat box while we get to a third tip. I like 3, so I'm just going to ask you for a third tip. We said the breath, we got tapping. What would be a third tool that you would give to someone to begin to access healing in the body?
Yeah, I mean, again, I love movement. You know, I'm
Mm.
like movement. And again, it does not have to be, a lot of times we say stuff like this and we're just like, all right, this means that I have to go and find a yoga instructor and I've got to do something for a whole hour and it has to be this serious, rigorous thing. And it's like, no, movement can just be get up and go jump. It can be
Mm.
floor. It can be stretching the way your body wants to stretch. Sometimes it's actually more effective than trying to force your body to do something it doesn't want to do. You know,
Mm.
just give yourself a chance because sometimes as breastfeeding moms, we get kind of glued to a chair, right, to a bed, to wherever we're nursing, and we're like stuck in this like crunched up position. Even if you go back and forth between working and coming home, you're like sitting at
Right.
a desk, you come home and you sit with the baby, like get
Mm-hmm.
up and maybe for a walk. Maybe
Mm.
when the baby's down for a nap, get up and stretch, right? Nursing mamas always have tension in their neck and their
Mm.
shoulders. Always like, oh, just in this position. So open, unwind. Give yourself the chance to feel what it feels like to move some of that energy that's been stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I guess the last thing would be journal,
Okay.
right? You don't have someone to talk to,
I had a
right?
feeling that was coming.
Yeah, as nursing mamas, you know, sometimes our friends, our community does not support it. It doesn't support
Mm.
us, or it's not that they don't support, but they never experienced, right? A lot of our grandmothers have never breastfed, so they don't
Mm.
have the and things to give us when we want it. So sometimes it's just good instead of keeping it clouded here in the mental to kind of just get it out on paper, right? Writing it down, giving yourself the ability to clear some of that those thoughts and the ickiness that can get stuck in our mental mud, right? And
Yes.
our as you do to just come out on paper and then read it back to yourself if you need to. Hear your own self and validate your own thoughts and have the space for your own experience so that you don't always have to be searching for somebody else to validate it for you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are three things that maybe four now, that I
Yay.
recommend.
All right. So
Yes.
we got 3 tips. Last question. Um, so in February, we
Mhm.
used the hashtag I am Black History, and we posted a lot of pictures of
Right.
us breastfeeding, and your image and your experience, your story, the story you shared touched the most people, had the most responses. Why do
Mhm.
you think that is?
Well, I think that it's something that people go through, but it's so untalked about. You know, again,
Mm-hmm.
this visual that we have, firstly, of motherhood, this visual that we have of breastfeeding, all these things are sometimes put in the media to be like this, again, easy, beautiful, lively, happy experience. And we don't often talk about the dark stuff, right? The
Mm-hmm.
trauma. We don't often talk about the body experiences. We don't often talk about the relationships with baby that may not be positive, you
Right.
know? And so being able to, I guess, share that story and kind of affirm that for some other women that have been going through it, but didn't
Mm-hmm.
know thing, two, that they had permission to feel those things, and three, that there was somebody else out there that was going through it as well. It
Mm-hmm.
probably I was like, thank you, sis. That's how I felt when I finally found these true mama pages and these
Mm-hmm.
true and the people that'll tell you straight like it is and not force you to believe a fake positive fantasy. You know, it made me feel like, oh, I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm supported, and I'm not alone. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what the other women were going through when they read that.
I appreciate that because realness is so helpful to
It
access
is.
healing
Yeah.
in this world of Instagram. All right.
Hmm.
I'm going to ask people to put in the chat one takeaway. What's one thing you took away from this conversation? And as that's
Yes.
coming, just I want to give you the last 5 minutes to just tell us how we can get in touch with you. Where can we find Elle? And yeah, that's it. Where can we find you?
Definitely. Well, obviously here on Instagram, right? My name is Elle, but my Instagram is the trauma queen. So that's the underscore trauma underscore queen. You guys can get me if you have any questions ever. I'm like always there to support. But the two offerings that I do offer, if you are in New Jersey, Essex County area, or just like tri-state and want to come out bodywork. I do offer bodywork offerings, one being the somatic bodywork that I mentioned that does work to move the trauma out. And the other is that I offer is a restorative touch. And that's more like your basic therapeutic massage, but we're still working in a deeper way, the deeper pieces of our bodies to open and help to bring healing. Now, if you wanted to work with me on a more intimate level, I am actually offering a group coaching course. It's called The Healer Within. It will be launching next week, so I'm super excited about that. We start September 14th, but basically it's an 8-week journey of about 15 women, which I'm manifesting. And we'll be going through this journey of rediscovering how this traumatic residue is living in our systems and kind of like standing in the way of our growth. But we're going to go through the journey of unraveling, of seeing, of being with, of nurturing, so that we can open, right, to our higher self and step into that beautiful power of the natural ability of our bodies to heal and to guide us to healing and happiness.
Yeah.
So if that's information on that, feel free to DM me. Feel free to reach out. And soon, by next week, there will be an application within my bio so that you can click to apply to learn more information and to actually get a call with me to do a little coaching and also to see what's right for you. So I really appreciate you, Jill. I really appreciate you, Chocolate Day, and all the listeners and people that were here that just came to hear a little bit, support us, and things of that nature. Sisterhood is everything. Community is everything. Support is everything. So I genuinely love y'all and genuinely am here to support.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough. People Access L. I pinned her name there so you can find her, and I'm sure you can find her somehow on this thing, right? But also make sure you come to the Chocolate Milk Cafe meetings. We're all virtual now, so you can access us. We are in a bunch of different states at this point, in various cities within them. And we get to have these conversations. The more we have these conversations, the more we get to heal, and then we get to offer that to our children, because we are giving them the energy that is within us. And if we can tap into the healing energy within us, they continue to be able to access this, because we can't always protect them from the world, but we can give to each other and to our seeds access to these healing practices so that we can begin to change the story for us as a people. We have a meeting starting at 6:30. I think you can still register if you go to chocolatemilkcafe.com. Stay tuned to more goodness coming up with the Chocolate Milk Cafe in Black Breastfeeding Week. Thank you, sis. Love you, sis. And we will do this again soon, maybe. Peace, everyone.
All right. Peace, everyone. Love y'all.
All right. Peace. End.